What's up, guys? Lee back with another video. In this video I want to talk about something I think is really cool. A lot of cool updates that are going to be coming to Destiny very soon, hopefully sooner rather than later, and I'm very excited. So basically, in This Week at Bungie, our weekly Destiny newsletter, we got some information about updates that are being worked on for the game, updates that I think are going to really make the end game a lot better, going to provide us with more content to play. And replayability, which is the big thing that Destiny 2 needs right now, is just replayability, not necessarily more new content, but just being able to do that same content over again and have a feeling of success, like you've done something, even though it may be the same thing, you've gotten a reward for it that may be different. So there's some bullet points here. I want to go through all of them. They're from Chris Barrett. He is one of the guys at Bungie that makes all this cool stuff that we play every week. He was there when House of Wolves came out and Rise of Iron. House of Wolves was, I really liked House of Wolves a lot better than The Dark Below, and Rise of Iron was a lot of fun, I think, as well. It needed some more story missions, but it was still good. And I think they've got the live team working on this as well. Not super sure about that part, but I think they are. But let's talk about each one of these and what they mean. So the first bullet point says, new systems and rewards to give our most engaged players additional optional pursuits. So it basically means more loot. More things for us to get, and more ways for us to get those things. They kind of unpack each other as we go down the bullet points. So the next one, better incentives for players who complete challenging prestige activities. So right now, if you complete a prestige activity like the Nightfall or the Raid, you get a 300 piece of gear instantly, unless it's got a legendary mod, then it's 305. The problem with that is traditionally in the past with Destiny, if you were playing a hard mode raid or something like that, the light level would be higher for that. So when the prestige version of the raid came out and you were still 305 light and not 325 or something like that, that's what kind of destroyed everybody's hope for that prestige raid. Because I know a lot of people right now aren't even playing this prestige raid because there's no benefit to it. It doesn't make you more powerful. It doesn't give you newer gear. It just gives you a different looking gear, and you stay at 305. So that's the one reason why people aren't doing that. So I'm hoping when they say incentives and things, I'm hoping they're either going to come out with some cool ornaments that you can get through prestige mode, or some cool things through prestige mode that you can't get in the normal, or raise the light level. And then the next one, better rewards and replay value for strikes, adventures, and lost sectors. So one thing right now, lost sectors were touted as being this awesome thing when we first looked at Destiny 2 months ago before it came out, and really they're nothing. You go through them, and it's great at the beginning of the game if you want to get some quick gear and get a little power boost, but in-game wise, they're nothing. There's no point in even doing them. So really, Lost Sectors need a revamp for some cool gear. We need better adventures, and the strikes need, its own strike-specific gear, and I'm hoping that they're working on that. It would be nice for each strike if we had at least a weapon or a piece of armor for each class or each different type of character. That would be cool. And also, on the adventures and lost sectors, it would be cool if for each planet, and someone's made a thing about this before, if each planet you actually had a set of armor for the planet, and the set of armor gave you bonuses towards defeating enemies and things on that planet. And someone's also made a thing about leveling each of your vendors on each of the planets and getting different things as you go along, like specific planet exotics, and different gears and shaders and things like that. So I think that would be really cool. So I'm hoping they're working on that. Next, private matches for competitive community. We're targeting early 2018. I was really hoping this was going to be in the game outright, just because I had so much fun with everyone in Destiny 1 doing, just 6 versus 6, the HUD turned off, just trying to figure out who's on your team and shooting people. It was a lot of fun. And I will say this, they are coming out with it a lot sooner than they did with Destiny 1. So we're getting it within 6 months, when in Destiny 1, we got it, after 2.5 years or whatever, 2 years. So I'm excited for that. Next, tuning like adjusted for supremacy scoring and better spawning rules. I haven't really played a lot of supremacy, so I haven't really had any issues with this. I'm not a supremacy fan anyways, but undoubtedly this is something that people are complaining about, so it's good to see that they're actually working on that, even though it's not particularly something that I am subscribing to. I do know that supremacy matches do take a long time, though, so maybe that has to do with the scoring. Hopefully they'll lower it a little bit. The next, better incentives for completing crucible matches and penalties for quitting competitive matches. So yeah, competitive matches, I can see people getting mad for people quitting that, especially if you're coming into it, respawning into the game, and it's halfway through and you're getting destroyed. And then the incentives for completing. Now, that's one thing too. Used to, people don't get that. You still get gear when you win a crucible match. Now, you get a lot of blues. You don't get a lot of legendaries. That's because there's a lack of gear in the game. But used to in Destiny, after each match, there was a screen that popped up and you were rewarded loot. Well, instead of doing that now they just give it to you when the match is completed, kind of like the nightfall. So it's not necessarily that it's it's different. It just gives you the loot in a different way. But people are kind of acting like they don't get loot at all. Next, continued improvements to Iron Banner and faction rallies, including uniqueness of rewards. That's one issue too, is that Iron Banner and faction rallies seem to only be around for 1 week each month. Now, we don't know about the faction rallies because we know Iron Banner to be once a month because that's always how it's been. But faction rallies, I'm hoping, is also once a month, because not having the factions around constantly when we've been used to that for 3 years, and them not having really the greatest of loot. Now, the shaders look awesome, but you don't really get many of them. I'm excited to see what happens. Now, my thing is, if you change the loot at the faction rallies to new looking loot each time, I think it's to the point where it's not that it's too much loot. It's just that there's no way for everyone to really get in there and get all the loot, because that's something like every month you're going to have a new set of loot to try to get, which I don't know this yet. I don't know how often they're going to do faction rallies, but having them sitting there in the tower with nothing just kind of irritates me in a lot of ways. So hopefully they're working on that, and hopefully they can change the way we get rewards. I know turning in the tokens in Destiny 2 is not really the funnest thing for me. I used to love turning in packages and different things like that, the tokens. I'm not a big fan of, because you know you're just going to get 294 if you're 305 like me, so there's no really any point. Changes to make the mod economy more interesting and impactful. Now, this is the thing that people have been talking about a lot, and this is something that interests me a lot. Instead of actually making weapons to where they have different perks per se, one of the things here too is if you improve the mods and give us multiple mod slots on each weapon, then you can instead of having different weapons that you can change, make the quest in Destiny 2 not to replay activities so that you can get weapons with different roles, but so you can replay activities to get better mods. That's one thing that they could do to improve without overhauling the whole system. If you had more variety of mods and you had uniqueness to certain mods and you had to replay activities to get these mods that would go on your weapons and make them awesome, then you could kind of stray away from the whole we need different perks on weapons when they drop. Because I know they can't just go in there and flip a switch. They have to rework all of that stuff to make it do the random mods, I'm sure. So I think if they redo the mods and how we get them and the uniqueness of them and how many different mods there are, I think you could really do something cool with the weaponry. Next, ongoing improvements to exotics, including adjustments to reduce instances of duplication. Now, this is something that happened a lot in Destiny 1, and people are mad that it's happening in Destiny 2. And one thing I want to point out, to at least you're getting an exotic. Around this time in Destiny 1, people were turning in exotics and getting blues. So I get people's argument, but at the same time, if you're an OG Destiny player, I don't care, because at least I'm getting an exotic. Like, I might get Crest Alpha Loopy twice, but at least I can infuse the other one into something else, or at least get some materials so that I can go buy stuff from Xur, I can go buy mods or things from the gunsmith. So it's not as bad as it used to be. Now, improvements to exotics. Now, one thing I will say, a lot of exotics I feel like don't really do anything. Like, if it helps me reload my sidearm and that's it, that really makes me mad, because that's not an exotic. That's nothing good about that. I mean, maybe in one little instance, but I found myself now more or less just using no exotics, period. It's actually for the last 3 weeks on a nightfall, I haven't even used an exotic, I don't think. I might on my character, but not on my weapons at all. Just because there's nothing that's like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. I'd rather use my legendaries. And that's something that really needs to be improved, because in Destiny 2, certain exotics were things you really needed to be able to do certain activities. And I think that's why they strayed away from it, because they want everybody to be able to access everything. And it's hurting some people and helping others. So, I mean, it's always going to be a problem in the game, but it's something they really need to work on. Next, new ways to spend surplus currency and materials. Looking at you, legendary shards. Yeah, because I've already got about 600 on one on my Xbox, and then I've got 200 or so on my PlayStation because I played a little bit less. But yeah, doing something extra with the legendary shards, it kind of turns into what Destiny was in the fact, I think it was legendary shard. It wasn't shards, but the little legendary things we had, you could only cap out at like 200, but after a while there was nothing to really spend them on. So, I mean, at the end they finally updated it where they had random different weapons each week for the vendors, but before that we didn't have nothing to spend them on. So maybe they'll change it up. I really wish they would bring the vendor weapons and gear back. And then lastly, an emote interface that allows players to equip salty, spicy ramen, 6-shooter, and flip out all at the same time. Now, not just those four, but being able to equip any 4 shaders that you want would be amazing, because some of the things that you can do right now on it, I really don't really like. If anybody remembers Jak and Daxter 2 and 3 on PlayStation 2, you had 4 weapons. And if you wanted to go to different versions of that weapon, you just click the D-pad out twice or 3 times out that direction of that weapon. So if you could equip 3 out, or 1 out, up, down, left, and right, and just press over on the D-pad twice to activate that thing, that would be really cool. And I think that would be a simple solution. But being able to have 4 different ones to convey totally different emotions would be amazing, rather than 2 dances, a wave, and a sit down. So being able to do, you know, a dance, a wave, a sit down, and then 4 unique things that you could kind of do calls with, that would be awesome, especially for our people out there who might not have mics. Being able to have 4 different unique calls that you can do to be able to communicate with your team would be quite amazing. So that's a lot of things they're working on, and that's a longer list than I expected them to give us on things that they're trying to improve. So I'm super excited about this. I can't wait to see what more they're going to do with the game. And I'll be honest with you guys, I know that a lot of us are done with all the content in the game, but I am ready for this December little update of expansion, and I know that it's going to be better than the Dark Below was, as long as it's got more than 3 missions and just the raid, and that's it, and the raid's got at least more than 2 bosses. I think we're going to be okay. But really the point is just a longer story, because that 3 missions was terrible. So I'm hoping they at least give us 5 or 6. So we just have to wait and see. A lot more exotics I'm hoping for as well, and more gear and changes to the mods. But let me know in the comments what's something that you want changed that's maybe not on this list, or maybe something on this list you've been asking for a long time that they're finally reacting to. They've kind of answered a lot of the problems that I think the game has, and I think they're really trying to work on fixing it early on rather than 2 or 3 years later like they did with Destiny 1. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like on the video if you did. Comment below. Like I said, let me know anything that you think they need to address that they haven't here, or things that you wanted them to that they did. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.